Here's a tip to keep you from getting ghosted and to make your text conversations way more fun. So this right here is a recent conversation between me and my wife. Obviously, it's my wife, so I'm not trying to be manipulative or anything like that. What I just want to show you guys is that here's a long text that has a lot of different elements to it. There's, she's talking about people that we know. She's talking about them playing with the baby. She's talking about, like when to wake up next, and then also being tired from the night before. So imagine if this was a text from some girl that you were actually talking to over Tinder, and all of a sudden they're telling you, where they're from. They're telling you what their hobbies are, and then they're asking you like what your hobbies are. So they've given you like 2 or 3 different elements in the same conversation, and what most guys do is they robotically respond to each one of those items. Now, what tends to happen when guys do that, when they just sort of robotically respond to everything that the girl says, the conversation becomes very predictable, becomes very tit for tat, and very, very mundane and boring, and ultimately the girl will ghost from that conversation. So what you want to do instead is actually pick and choose the highest vibration topic out of the long conversation that it is that you want to talk about. So, for example, in this conversation right here, rather than talk about being tired from the night before, what I'm going to do is hone in on, the idea of Auntie Linda and make a joke about, Aunt Linda. Maybe I can make a joke like, oh, maybe she's a Karen, or some kind of other stereotype or cliche that could now turn the conversation in a fun direction rather than the low energy topic of being tired from the next morning. So if a girl texts you, she says, hey, I'm from Florida. My hobbies are X, Y, and Z. And by the way, what's your hobby? Rather than to say, oh, Florida, that's so cool. And then you're like, oh, you like skateboarding? That's cool too. Oh, and my hobbies? Oh yeah, it's also skateboarding or whatever, right? That's what most guys do, is they just like go through and they systematically validate everything the girl says. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. Right. And now the conversation is really fucking boring because she goes, hey, this, and this. And then you're like, oh, that's cool. And that's cool. Right. And it just becomes really fucking boring. So pick and choose what you're going to respond to out of the text conversation. You don't have to touch on all topics, right? That you can go back to the earlier things that she said later in the conversation. For example, maybe at first you say, oh, you're from Florida? That's really fucking cool. Like my grandparents still live down there. And I go to the senior center and play bingo with them all the time, right? That's a fun way to touch on what she said. Now, later in the conversation, you might choose to talk about your hobby and answer the question, but you don't have to do it all at once. Like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and follow me for more dating advice.